Does it for me, strip away sweet the varnish of sleep, minting, imprinting this part of me. Breakfast with you, here you go. Truth, utter nonsense, do it with me, with tethered tongue signal, splendor of sleep. Vocalize, still I cry, this part of me I know. This you know, this I know. Breakfast with you. Sunrise does it for me. Fire infused with color, with dream, blazing, reglazing this part of me. Breakfast with you, here you go. Does it for me, service supreme, me suffering, sleep, feeding, indeed I am this part of me. I know, this I know, this I know. Breakfast with you. This, thank you, does it for me, sugarcane, rain, spice up the dream, addicting, uplifting this part of me. Spearmint, here you go. Sunrise, here you go. Nonsense, here we go. Thank you, here I go. Breakfast with you. Well, greetings and welcome to the March 2013 episode of Conversations with Dog. Greg Allen here with Alice, the Canine Messiah. And this month we want to pick up on the February episode and talk a little bit more about the one exercise that Alice and I share in our book, the Now Exspirientuality. And want to make note that this month, on March 20th at 6 o'clock, we will be giving a presentation in Crozet, Virginia at the Over the Moon bookstore. And that presentation will be called Seeing Eye to Eye. We'll also be giving the Seeing Eye to Eye presentation on Saturday, March 30th in Stanton, Virginia at Black Swan Books and Music. And that will be at 5 p.m. So we hope you'll join us if you're nearby. And so where we want to pick up now is with the notion first of meditation. Meditation is to begin with a single pointed focus. Some people focus on an object, say a candle flame, and some people will focus on a phrase and just repeat a phrase, a mantra. Some people will chant. But again, the notion is to attain a single pointed focus, to occupy your mind with just this one thing, you see, and get very, very focused and empty your mind of the normal busy chitter-chatter that goes on back and forth about, everything under the sun. And really what you're doing is sort of boring your mind with this constant talk of this one thing. And that's a good thing, because eventually, when this is, all that you're focused on is this one thing, this candle flame or this chant or whatever, well, then you can let go of that. And now your mind is empty. There you are in that space of what is called thoughtless awareness. You see, where you're not thinking. And it is indeed the space of no thing. You see, because, well, what is a thing? A thing is a think. It is a unit of thought. So what you're doing is you're not thinking. You're in the space of no think, which is the space of no thing. You have to think in order for there to be things. So there you are. You're wide awake, but you're not thinking. And so I want to make the point that, this space, this no thing that goes by, 100 names, nirvana and the void and all those sorts of things. Well, it's not really as mysterious and elusive as it has been made out to be over the centuries and continues to be made out to be. It's really very accessible. Now, within this space, then realizations arise. You see, not really again thoughts, but just realizations. Things come to mind. And in a sense, this is one of the objectives, is to empty the mind so that new thought, new ideas, fresh realizations can arise. And many of them will be very profound insights. Very practical insights, not just, mystical sort of stuff, but really profound and practical insights that can be utilized in one's day-to-day living. In this space of no thing, of thoughtless awareness, this truly is where the observer, the ultimate observer, the I, that is each of us, that is where the I exists, shall we say, in this empty space. I mean, when you're born, you don't have all these thoughts going through your head, and yet there you are, aware and observing, taking things in. You just don't have the mental patterns yet. You haven't formulated the ability to think. And again, this is a good thing. It's useful. Thinking is also useful. But this observer, this ultimate I, in this space of no thing, just observes and allows these realizations to come and go. Don't get hung up on them, because now you'll take off thinking again. And this is one of the reasons that it takes time to really learn to meditate deeply for extended periods, even for 5 or 10 minutes, to maintain this empty space of thoughtless awareness. And it should be noted that this space of thoughtless awareness is not only attained in the quiet of your meditation room at the appointed time for the appointed, duration, but it is also something that, even though you may not have noticed, you have likely attained and maybe even strive to attain when you are out, working and doing things in the, in the real world. When you get very focused on a creative endeavor, or a project at work. Well, the whole notion is to really focus on what it is you're doing. Empty your mind. Don't be thinking about, grandma and what are you going to do with her and the children and the bills and the taxes and, all these worries that you have from day to day. These are distractions from your creative endeavor. So the more you can get focused on the task at hand, the endeavor at hand, well, the more, shall we say, successful and productive you will find yourself being. I used to road race motorcycles. I spent about, I don't know, 10 or 11 years racing motorcycles at racetracks around the country, you know, very high-speed stuff. And this is very much a meditative endeavor, even though it is at very high speed. Because again, it is important not to be distracted by thought after thought after thought that's unrelated. You want to find yourself in that space where you're just doing, you're just being, and you're not thinking about it. You know, it's getting in the zone. You've probably heard that term associated with sporting endeavors. And so that is indeed a meditative zone. It is a space of thoughtless awareness, thoughtless activity, just being and doing. So now let's switch over for a minute and talk about a very common phrase. I'm sure you've heard it, you probably say it. There is no other. Very popular among New Age gurus, you know, and their disciples. But what does this really mean? Do you know? I mean, in a practical sense, can you go about your world with a meaningful, practical, actionable sense of there is no other? I mean, we live in a world of other, populated with other people and other things. You know, there's this thing I have, and then there's that other thing that I want. And you know, there's the other political party and those other ideas that I don't really agree with about guns or school safety or whatever the hot topic of the day is. There's, you know, there's this and there's that. There's the other shoe. We're always waiting for it to drop. So this very profound notion, it becomes hollow. It becomes, in a sense, useless, meaningless. It's not something we can act upon, because we see other everywhere, even though we deny the existence of other. And when asked to explain, well, what does that mean? There is no other. Many people will jump right to another popular cliche. We are all, you know, fill in the blank. We are all one. But again, what does this mean? In an actionable sense, can you actually live as though we are all one? In our song, Time OT, we sing, tell me about one. Did you ever be one? Just one. Not one of a kind. Not one human or one Caucasian or one African American, you know, or one carpenter or one writer, one, you know, nurse. That's one of a kind. Have you ever just been one? Well, this is where Alice and I will give you a little hint. I mean, go ahead and write that statement out on a piece of paper. We are all one. But instead of putting the normal, you know, digit 1, or instead of spelling out the word one, use a Roman numeral 1, which looks a lot, you see, like the capital letter I. Aha. See, herein lies this essence of no other. We are all I. Now let me digress just a moment, because I want to talk about existence, life itself, okay, which is that common one thing that we all can be said to share. We're all here immersed in existence. And this unity that is existence, this one thing, it can be seen as experience plus expression. That is the basic duality. We're either experiencing something, you know, taking it in, or we're expressing something, putting it out there. And really we're doing both at the same time, you know, because you're always experiencing through your senses, and you're always taking in, you know, breath or putting out breath. And even as you experience through your senses, well, you might be expressing yourself to, you know, the meeting, the other folks at the meeting. And here's the important point. here's why I digress. Think about it now. Have you ever expressed yourself as other? Have you ever had the experience of being other? By that I mean other than I. Can you express yourself, or can you have an experience as other than I? Of course not. You can't do it. Because we are all I. And so now, moving into this notion of bringing that peace from your meditation space, bringing that state of thoughtless awareness within which these profound insights and realizations arise. Well, what you do is you go about your world and you see eye to eye. The common dream that we all share is the dream of just as I am. We all wish to be loved, embraced, accepted just as I am. And so what Alice, the Canine Messiah, suggested to me many years ago, and what we talk about in our book, is to utilize, there's a very ancient mythology. In the beginning, there was the self. And looking about, the self said, I am this. Actually, it's quoted as, I am that. But, you know, that's a duality. To say this and that is really a duality. So we've sort of paraphrased it, and, you know, the self said, I am this. And really, this is another key to the essence of presence, is to stay with the notion of this. I mean, even if you've got both your shoes in front of you on the floor, and you say to someone, well, you know, normally you would say, well, first I'll put on this shoe, and then I'll put on that shoe. But to do that, to utilize the word that, is to be stuck in the past. Even though it's, you know, the past of just a millisecond ago, to use the word that is to recognize, to hold on to the prior shoe, the previous shoe. And so it is equally valid to point to your right shoe and say, well, I'm going to put on this shoe. And then you point to the left shoe and say, and then I'll put on this shoe. So it is much more an immersion in presence, moment to moment, millisecond to millisecond presence, which is really the reality of now. So it's a small linguistic trick, I suppose, but it is very, very useful. So, in the beginning was the self, and looking around and becoming aware of itself, the self said, I am this. So, see only this, don't see this and that. I often wonder, why do non-dualists want to duel? You know, they're always splitting things up. And this is a way to keep it together. And so what you do as you move about your world is see only the self, not self and other, because we've covered this. There is no other. You are seeing only I. You are taking each fellow human that you encounter, as well as each bird and tree and squirrel, as fellow I. You are seeing only the self. And now to get back to how we meditate, well, what you do, quite simply, is label everything an aspect of the self. There is tree self, and there is squirrel self, and there is road self, there is car self, there is Greg self, and Alice self, and teacher self, and waitress self, you know, on and on. And so you relentlessly label everything an aspect of the self. Now, this doesn't mean you have to speak it out loud. This is a mental practice. And practice this for a few days and into a week and into a few weeks. And eventually, just as with the candle flame in your meditation room that you just describe ad infinitum, in order to empty your mind of all these silly other thoughts. You see, well, that's what you're doing. labeling everything an aspect of the self. You're bringing it all together. You're maintaining the unity of everything that you encounter, because indeed we are all one. And if you do this relentlessly, then very soon it will be easy enough to let go of these labels, because you now have begun to see everything in this unified fashion, what Alice calls unifying vision. You've adopted it. And so you let go of labels and you be as one with self at every turn. And you will find your mind is quite still. Here you are, immersed in that space of no thing, of no think, of thoughtless awareness as you walk around, as you do your work, as you drive your car, wherein these profound insights and practical insights can arise and will arise. Now, many folks I know will just poo-poo the idea, and that is fine. You know, I understand, and I welcome the notion of walking around with cliches and saying, well, we're all one. But acting as though there are all these other things that we have to fight against, all these other things that are dragging us down in our lives. I understand that. I see it all the time. I find that modern gurus really encourage that sort of behavior. I don't understand why. Even though they'll tell you that we're all one, they will also tell you all the things that you must fight against and rid the world of in order to make it really be one, you know. What Alice and I giggle about sometimes is this idea that people will, you know, spend some 4,680 weeks of their life saying no to the very real possibility that indeed it is all one, and indeed we can live productively in that mindset. They will poo-poo this idea for 4,680 weeks. You know, that's 90 years or something. But then again, what we like to suggest is, you know, why not just give it a little whirl for, say, 8 or 10 or 12 weeks? I mean, why not? Do the math. What percentage is that of your 4,680 weeks? So it, you know, may well be worth a try. Because what you're really doing is engaging the true opportunity, the true art of humanity. What you're doing is you're seeing yourself equal at every turn. And equality, as you may remember, is the foundation of freedom and of true humanity. I mean, it's the foundation of every religion that I'm aware of. You know, we're all created equal. Spirituality is the same thing, speak to equality, the pure equality. And even the Declaration of Independence in the United States of America, the foundation of this country itself is the proclamation of a clear vision. I see it. I see equality at every turn. All men are created equal. You see, men means mankind. Don't get hung up on sexes. That's ridiculous. So you really set yourself free. And as with the Declaration of Independence, what you do is you set yourself free to govern yourself. And you will do so from your heart, from a vision of equality that allows you to live in a way that so many of us want to live but have had trouble finding. So there you have it. Go about your world seeing eye to eye. And if you have any questions, drop us a line. We hope to see you in Crozet. That's Wednesday, March 20th at 6 p.m. over the Moon Bookstore. Or Saturday, March 30th at 5 p.m. That's at Black Swan Books and Music in Stanton, Virginia. All right then, take care.
Like waking up from a dream.
does it for me. Strip away, sweet, the varnish of sleep. Minting, imprinting this part of me. Breakfast with you, here you go. Truth, utter nonsense, do it with me. With tether, tongue signal, splendor of sleep. Vocalize, still I cry. This part of me I know. This you know, this I know. Breakfast with you. Sunrise does it for me. Fire infused with color, with dream. Blazing, reglazing this part of me. Breakfast with you, here you go. It for me, service supreme, me suffering, sleep, feeding, indeed I am this part of me. I know, this I know, this I know. Breakfast with you. This, thank you, does it for me. Sugarcane, rain, spice up the dream, addicting, uplifting this part of me. Spearmint, here you go. Sunrise, here you go. Nonsense, here we go. Thank you, here I go.